Mike from around the world. How you doing, Mike?
God bless you, Pastor Paul. How do I sound?
You sound wonderful tonight.
All right.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's great. Wow.
Okay.
Wow. I've been preaching away and everything else, and I said, oh, I can't wait till Mike gets here. Mike,
Well,
you notice what I put in the we got a lot to talk about. You know, we got all these horrific tragedies and things that have happened and what happened to Morocco and Libya and just everything. But before we get any further, you mentioned something right at the end of the show last week. And you said, we might be talking about the coffin. And then I thought, well, and boy, people all week long have sent us emails. What's he mean by the coffin? Is that the stone steps? I'm like, no, it's two different. It's two different dreams. You
yeah,
know.
two different
So I said,
ones.
you know what? Let's just ask Mike if he would share with us first the coffin dream and then the stone steps, and just share with us that
The
dream
coffin,
and tell us.
the coffin was not. It wasn't a good situation. It was silence, almost like a desperate feeling with an individual laying in a coffin with a flag draped over, and some personnel standing who, by the way, are still, they're still active, but they were standing next to that coffin. The general feel of that place, and I'd never seen a face in a coffin, never in a dream, never, right? It's certainly not, the face I saw, but the general feeling, Pastor Paul, was almost desperation, confusion. I mean, like a person who all their plans failed is the way it felt,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So there was no joy there. There was no it was awful. It was terrible. It's a bad feeling. And one thing I took away with that is when I have a feeling that's happening. And this happened. This dream was a while back. It was a while back. And all of a sudden we have a few candidates. It's an unexpected thing, but the nation is altered due to that. In
America,
fact,
you're,
that coffin, it's almost like that coffin represented the end of an era. I mean,
mm,
a swift end. Not that the coffin itself would end it, but when that person was in that coffin, it was over. Whatever was going on before, it would never go back to that. Right? It was over. It was done for.
so
And
did you feel the country was just absolutely stunned?
yeah, the country was. It's sad to say, but this country was ripped to pieces. Yeah, I mean, it was almost like it was in a very desperate position, right? Very desperate, very not so good, right? Um, and of course, that happens during times of strong trials. But yeah, that's what it seemed like. It was just a very bad time. It's a very bad time. And the flag draped over the coffin, the way the flag was, if anybody's ever been to a military funeral, it was somewhat like that, but it was very sloppily done.
Mm.
It wasn't neat. It was sloppy. It was almost like somebody began the process of folding the flag, but then they lost enthusiasm. And part of it was draped and hitting the ground, right? Part of the flag was on the ground, lapped over that coffin on the ground, with the individual standing up with no answers in their faces, like blank faces. No answers, no solutions, no anything. And it's so strange because it seems week by week we're gravitating to that point, week by week. And of course, President Biden, he's not in good health. He's
No.
not, despite what they say, he's not in good health. And the Congress is not in good health, meaning that they are dysfunctional. They are. That's going to become painfully obvious shortly. There are mechanisms that were once would give a person hope. Those mechanisms and some of the enthusiastic personnel, qualified personnel behind it, are no longer. They're not there anymore. So we are quickly reaching a point, this 0 hour, where everybody's going to know that we're in some type of situation, a
Did you
mess.
feel that this was a end of you said end of an era? Was this an end of a movement?
Yeah, nobody had answers. Some of what's happening right now. For example, this governmental civil war that they have right now. It should be obvious to everybody now that wasn't happening then. It was almost like because you had people who were on the opposite sides. They had no smiles, no no enthusiasm, no anything. They were blank faced, almost like we were at the end of the end of something something major, the end of something major, and
Which
it was just not a good
which
situation.
dream do you think happens first, Mike? And will it be the stone steps or will it be the coffin dream? Which do you think?
I don't know. I don't know. The stone steps is a haunting thing. I say that because I had it so long ago, and the individuals that were involved, they were nowhere near on the scene back then, right? But
Yes.
all the elements are on the scene now, and ever since certain people have come into the picture, there's been nothing but prosecution. We've never had a time that the government has been uh, so focused on prosecuting, each other. We've never had this happen in our
No.
republic. Never, not like
No.
this, never. And so, and the people are divided. The people are divided without any future solution. They are not as far as politics. They are divided without any future solutions. In fact, conversations have been heard, groups are meeting, plans have been made, contingencies have been set up. You wouldn't believe what's in tow behind, because everybody's ready that if something takes place, they will act.
When you say
Um,
contingent, yeah, when you say contingency, kind of help us understand.
well,
What do you mean?
when President Trump got out of office, when he was out of office, and all this, the election fraud subject was at the top of the list. There were tractor trailers going all around the country. There were militias forming, right? And we're not talking about some ragtag group either. We're talking about very organized groups that were forming. Now we have militias on both sides,
Yeah.
Democrat and Republican
Right.
sides.
Right.
And we're not talking about, they just rounded up people from the neighborhood. No, that's not what it is. These are qualified, well trained individuals who were training various individuals. Troop strength, they have troop strength, troop dedication, even within the ranks. So, you know, this entire situation is going to, one way or another, pass ball. It will end. I don't believe it's going to go back to normal. It's not going back to normal. We're in a cycle that's not going back to normal. I don't believe that people can grasp that yet until it takes place. Then, of course, it'll be a little shock and awe in there. But we're at a point now with this prosecution thing that, number one, somebody is going to take a fall, right? It's
Yep.
already beginning.
Yep.
It's becoming all too real. And I think that even the recent move with Hunter Biden,
Yeah.
gave everybody a moment to pause because he was actually, indicted with lesser charges than the Republicans wanted, but with serious charges that could result in real jail time. Right?
Right.
The plea bargain was thrown out, and so that made things a little more serious. Not only that, but some other things are happening on both sides. There are more prosecutions are coming, and they're not going to stop.
Do you
Um,
and not to interject here, just for a quick second, stay on your train of thought. Do you feel that the Hunter Biden indictments today has something to do with they're starting to circle the wagon on? I'm talking to Democrats now. Seem like they're starting to circle the wagon on Joe Biden, as if to say, it's time for you to go. And on the other side of the thing, also your comments about, or your thoughts about Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, they're about ready to go to war. The Republicans are. They want to throw him out. And there's Matt Getz and there's some of these other guys, and there's a real strong conservative wing that is, so it looks like we've got two different things going. There's a civil war going on, as you say, but then there's their
Yes,
own internal wars on both sides. Am I seeing
that's
that?
part of it. That's part of it. Because what you're going to end up seeing are two radical sides. That's what you're going to see. And if you take note, everybody in the middle is being tossed out. If you're in the middle, if you're lenient within your party, right, you're going to be tossed out. They want one side or the other, right? The Democrats, let's just say that their orders have come through. Let's say that
Okay.
in politics, they will they're vocal about their planning until they get a directive. When a directive comes in, everybody jumps on board. You have your main personnel that jump on board. They begin to impress upon their subordinates what they have to do. And of course, that begins the cycle. The Republicans, same thing. Democrats, same thing. And so what has happened is what you see is almost like a movement order. Something has come down that has changed everything. Final directives have come through. Now, I had to remind everybody, we're right now, we're in a 1972 moment. And what I mean by that, there was an individual that was asked, what would it take for, one of the presidents of the United States to be female? And this gentleman said that the only way a female will ever become president is if an aged president was in the White House and the vice president was a female, right?
Yeah.
And of course, through the removal or death of that aged president, basically by death, that female would become vice president. And then listen what he said, though. He said, when that happens, every single male out there would be hard pressed to ever have that office again.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. Yep.
That's interesting.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you think about it, look at the world right now. Look at what the world is right now. The world has moved into a lot of different philosophies that are against the very foundation of some of the morale that we have in this country. Some of the points of morality that we had are gone, right? And so we have policies set that actually govern or allows a person in their life to, become anything they want to outside of what God made them to be. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
And because
Yes.
you have that, there's also an empowerment of all voices. And it just so happens a conservative individual is not loud. What I mean is, they don't force their opinions upon everybody. That's not what they do. When you have other individuals who have never had a voice, they're angry. And so when they get in a position of power, they're not going to easily let that position go. And they are very loud. They're very vocal, right? In fact, they talk a lot. And when they do this, they influence other people. This process has happened in our country beyond anybody's control. And it's this ever-growing thing. It has nothing to do with being a feminist or not. Nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with a suppressed part of human nature, right? Or let's just say human behavior being practiced without restraints, without anybody saying that's wrong, without anybody saying, you shouldn't do that. That's not what we're about. And so if that type person gets into a position of power, you better believe everybody else is going to come up and join that person who is of that same group, right? And start taking things over. By that time, every policy imaginable will have been changed, because they will put every piece, every ounce of energy they have in altering everything that was ever built. And they're going to fashion this country after something very foreign to most people who grew up with the Republic. So that's where we are. And in the extreme with the person on the stone steps, it was so broken when what happened to this person took place, because it was almost like people didn't expect it to happen, but it happened. It was unbelievable. But there was no making peace with the sides in the U.S. at that time. No making peace with that. But at this exact same time, and I can't emphasize this enough, when that happened, Pastor Paul, that's when we were hit. That's when foreign nations took
Oh, that's when
advantage
we got attacked.
of this country. That's right.
When are you saying
And then
that when
that wasn't good.
so in other words, you're saying we get attacked when the Stone Steps situation happens. When the Stone Steps, of
Yes.
course, and you've shared before, is when you seen basically Donald.
Somebody was escorted
Yeah,
down the
somebody
stones.
being
Yeah. Yep.
and he's been arrested and he's being
Yep.
escorted down the steps,
Yep.
and the whole nation sees it and the world also sees it, and it becomes a
Yep.
very dangerous situation
Yeah.
because. And let's talk about dangerous situation. Let's go into the Russian Kim Jong-un and his armored train. He went all the way to Russia to see Putin, and of course, President Xi did not show up at the G20. What does that mean? Is he done with the West? They're moving a different direction. So what's your thoughts about and Putin, by the way? I have a picture of Putin here that is, I can't believe, I don't even think this is him. I really don't. I'm gonna just put this on the screen. That if it is, he's sick. His face is puffy. I'm not so sure that's really him, but maybe it is. So is he still sick? Mike, is there still reports that he may have pancreatic cancer or liver cancer of some sort, and also Parkinson's? Seems to be still out there. So what's your thoughts on Kim
No,
Jong-un and Putin?
with Putin, I don't think he has Parkinson's. I think that Putin he's just aging. He
Okay.
is.
Okay.
And that's all I think is wrong with him. But this recent inspection, the first question is, why did they televise it? Of all things, why televise that?
Yeah. Why?
Why televise Kim Jong-un, right? That was clearly a message, is what that was. And by the way, they kept emphasizing that he was going to military bases, that he checked out Putin's space fleet. That kind of, leaked out of the corner.
Yeah.
They start talking about their Putin's nuclear spacecraft. That kind of leaked out, right? Nuclear-powered spacecraft.
Right.
And certain facts came out about Kim Jong-un. Now, naturally, in standing order of the current world, they're going to have propaganda on the news. So I'll just say it plainly. That was a pre-war inspection of Allied forces. So when Kim Jong-un went to go see Putin, and Putin opened up the gates, right, of Russia to Kim Jong-un, that was an inspection. You do that with allies right before you go to war.
Okay.
That's what you do. She is coordinating everything. He's coordinating.
Okay,
everything.
So you're saying
he's on a top tier position right now, right?
Yeah,
the
that's true.
U.S. has been kicked out of that top tier. No one has the USA positioned in that top tier position.
No, you're right.
One,
we're absent.
right?
We're absent. That's right.
That's why even Joe Biden is starting to pull out oil from the USA. He's everything the Democrats said not to do, Joe Biden is starting to do. But we know that's not really Joe Biden. We know that's the USA is being forced to do such things. We lost, things are starting to be reported. We've lost, 211,000, accountability of 211,000 immigrants that are likely Asian immigrants that are likely part of the Chinese army.
What?
Right.
That's
right.
Whoa,
we don't know where they are.
2,000. How many did you say they are?
211,000.
200,000 are here in the United States?
Yep. Oh, yes. See, we've been living in this bubble of an illusion, and we've actually been believing the propaganda. You know what I believe, Pastor? I have a deep belief here. I believe that when Trump came into office, the Lord began to show everybody out there how this propaganda works, right? He showed us, he allowed us to see the truth. The problem is people were so emotionally vested in taking a position by way of politics, they didn't see the truth. And the truth was, as they were exposing how they worked, one of the first things they exposed was how they propagandize everything. right?
Right.
Everything is about propaganda to make people believe what it's not, because for every fact, there was a counterfact. Well, when you have a counterfact to something like that, that turns out, 4 or 5 years later to be absolutely true, when you have issues, right? That means we've been viewing this country by way of propaganda. Now, you can do that for a little while
Yeah.
until some outside force calls your bluff. And what we have right now is we have these foreign nations calling our bluff. We have Saudi Arabia calling our bluff,
Yeah.
right? Our relations with Saudi Arabia are not good. And Saudi Arabia is now making deals. They've already made a deal with China, right? Turkey has made some deals
Yep.
with China. And we
Iran.
know that China is China, Russia, Iran, Turkey, Jordan, all these guys. Even Israel, right?
Yep.
Israel is talking to Putin
Yep.
and China and these other countries, because they're not going to have their own families starved. They're not doing that, right? Based on propaganda. And so this has thrown NATO into this confusion ball, is what has happened. So we're not living in very stable times right now. That is reflective of everything that's happening in the world. If it's not clear to a person right now, they are absolutely, if somebody believes that somehow this world is stable, they are living in a delusion. It is not. And we're very close to some transitional points where things are going to be extremely trying.
Are you
Extremely.
concerned? Are you concerned of a nuclear detonation? I mean, we had again this week. We keep hearing either the Russian news media or former generals, or one of their defense ministers or somebody out of Russia every week talk about nuclear war is inevitable. It's inevitable. You might as well get ready. We're going to do a preemptive strike. It's inevitable. They're training the populace there in Russia to prepare. Do you think it's inevitable that something's going to happen on a nuclear level?
Pascal, if you knew some of the training that was taking place, you would know that a nuclear event is coming. You would know that.
What percentage do you give that? Because I remember you
And I
telling.
give that 100, 150, 120%. How about
What?
that?
Wait, are you serious, Mike?
120%, yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, I remember when I asked you about, do you think Russia will ever leave Ukraine? You said no. 100% they'll never leave, and until they will fight till they take it all.
Yeah.
They'll never leave. You were right. That's what I see happening. You said that in 2014, and they invaded in 22. I asked you about something else here recently, and you said 100% it's going to happen. You're saying there's a 120% chance that there will be a nuclear detonation.
Yes.
No doubt about it.
Yes. Yeah. We're facing, okay, as far as these armies are concerned, right? You have China, who is, I know people don't like this statement, but they are matched with us by way of technology, right? Our bluff is going to be called.
Yeah.
And this should sober a lot of people up. Our bluff is going to be called. Who in their right mind, Pastor Paul, would have advanced technology, right, to defeat an army, but allow just about all their people to be destroyed and not use it?
Nobody would do that.
Also, it's very difficult to track any conflict that takes place under the waters, right?
That's right.
Now, there have been at least a handful of incidents that have happened in the waters that if it were visible to the world, nobody would live their life in the course they're living it in right now. It would be chaos all over the place. And so what we have is an escalation taking place, and it will eventually spill over. Russia, when you're dealing with technology, Russia has technology, yes. China has technology. USA has technology. But Russia does not know all of what we have, and we don't know all of what Russia has, and China does not know all of what we have, right?
No, that's
And we
right.
don't know all of what China has. So what will ultimately take place in a wartime situation is war will begin by way of probing. That's already happened. We've been in seasons of probing, right? That means cyber probing infrastructure, things like that, seeing how we react to natural disasters, to the slightest global event, seeing how we react to it. We're already doing that. Everybody's collecting intelligence on each other to see what their, psychological disposition would be. They've done that. The second stage would actually be conflict by lesser countries, right? To see exactly who's going to make what available, how fast, and how efficiently these small weapons, small tactical weapons work. Why? Because ego is something no one can ever cover up. If we have advanced technology, we're also going to be perfectionists in certain areas of munitions and certain areas of technology. And when you're having a war by proxy,
Yep.
prideful countries will always pridefully give these countries toys to play with that are better than the other guys, right? So you can actually gauge what somebody has in their garage by what they're using in these proxy wars.
Yes.
It's already been underway.
It's part of the
And
strategy.
now,
Yeah.
that's right. And it's out of the bag that the USA has. We have a pretty big digital frontier when it comes to weaponry. So you cannot really combat that, right? You can't do that. That's a wild card, basically, because you don't know how vast it is. So what do? When you go to war, you have to preempt. And in that preemptive strike, you cannot use BBs to knock out your enemy. What you're going to have to do is really cripple your enemy, right?
And you got to
And
do a
not just, you can't just cripple, the enemy to your left. You've got to cripple all the
All
enemies,
right, now let me ask you
right?
this
Cripple them.
question, because this is right down this same path. I got information. I've been sitting on it about 10 days. I'm not going to reveal the source. I'm not going to reveal it at all. But there is a military personnel. He's in a command position. Let's put it that way. Who said that they have run the model. They have run the models, the models, the models, the models.
And we lose,
And
we
we
lose, we
lose every
lose.
time to China.
He's correct. He's correct.
And this
He's correct.
individual, he said it's not even a doubt. There will be
He's correct.
war with China.
That's right.
Is
That's
this?
right.
It's all true?
Yeah, he's correct. Every single simulation, the outcome is not favorable to us. China is vast. They're vast beyond imagination. They have replicated everything. They are extremely efficient. They have taken most weapons they have seen and replicated those weapons in smaller, more mobile platforms, right? Where we have big, bulky things, they have small ones. Iron Dome, for example, they replicated Iron Dome, right? And it's a
Yeah,
much
yeah.
smaller mobile unit. And so when you face enemies like that, um, as far as Russia is concerned, because Russia will be they're going to be the main part of that trigger, right?
Yeah.
The USA is target number one, Israel, certain parts of Israel. We have a strong presence in Israel. And most people don't know this, but we have a very strong presence in Israel. You cannot see all of the USA in Israel. There's no way. And that was established during the Gulf Wars. In Turkey, we have a presence in Turkey, right? So then certain places in Turkey have to go belly up. But I believe that Turkey is going to handle that. The EU, same thing. The British Isles, same thing. So all the NATO allies are going to be targeted, right? They've already been probed. Intel is already back. Sat coverage is given, so they can, but they're going to have to use very large weapons to get all of them, send them all in chaos. That'll be nuclear. There are no other munitions that they can coordinate to fire like that. Now they have a handoff CNC, so their fire mechanism, any of these, China, North Korea, Russia, all these individuals, they can hand off, in Iran, they can hand off command and control of missiles, which is why they've been working on vehicles, launch vehicles, right? Even hypersonic launch vehicles. The warheads are done. They already know how to do that. The warheads are done. So they're going to go in that respect. So what we see next is we're going to see further probing. China's been quite emboldened with their probing. And then we're going to have a preemptive strike. Now, this is what the USA is contemplating. Before this preemptive strike, though, according to, I'll just say tradition, they suspect that we're going to have our communications grid damaged, right?
Okay.
It's going to become fragile, which is why they issued sat phones to personnel in governments, in places, in defense departments, and heads of DIA and all these different places. So they have, and it's not just any sat phone, because they know that the space domain, Space Command is going to have a severe task, and the Air Force a severe task with what they have to do next. We're not the only ones with a Space Command, right? Russia also has the same thing, right? They have a Space Force. We have a Space Force. Their Space Force has been functional for a long time. They have 2 space stations. People only know about, I believe, 1, if they know that. And China has been involved with Russia's space program for tens of years, right?
Wow.
Lots of years. So you're looking at a preempt. Certainly with us, they're going to hit us where it counts, but they're going to have to hit us when we are at our height of dysfunctionality, right? If they cannot induce this upon our grids, upon our communications grids and things like that, if they cannot cause that to happen, they will coincide their preemptive strike with some major happening, right? Or they know there are some celestial events that will take place. It's going to grab the world's attention, period. And they will, they're watching that, because as soon as we have a celestial disruption, they will strike. So we're at that point now. We're just at that point.
So let's talk about celestial disruptions. I mean, you know, we've talked about Planet X. I told people tonight we would ask you about Planet X or asteroids, incoming asteroid meteor storms. What is the we got the sun, you know, with all this solar activity. So what is the biggest impending celestial event that we are facing? What's the biggest one we're facing?
Well, I don't want to be too early in this.
Okay.
But I'll say this. I kind of, with the wave data, you know, the waves that we have coming in, for some reason, when these waves come in, we're starting to have, they're showing signs almost instantly, right? I keep dates of those things on a special certain page. Some people see it, some people don't. But I think that people that are seeing it are starting to realize that the nature of this inbound energy is changing, right? Because some of the cause and effect is a bit different now, which means we're in closer proximity to some very dangerous things. Everything in the heavens will change very soon. I don't think people have a good idea as to the timetable. So let me give an example. I'd say within a time span of a few months or so, people are going to be bedazzled by objects that cannot be plotted right now. And the only reason they know that certain objects are out there is because they accidentally start to track certain objects. I believe the Air Force, that started with the Air Force. It was a mistake. When you're tracking aircraft, right? Sometimes due to the, I hate to say this because I know people are going to say, no, it's not, but due to the curvature of when you're in flight, there's a curvature in all the electronics when you're processing data imagery, right? You have to know that curvature. Well, sometimes it can shoot above, up and out of the atmosphere, right?
Okay, because of the curvature. Yes.
That's right. And when this happened, there were some reflections that came back that weren't supposed to be there. Right? At first, they were going to call ghosts, some anomaly, something like that.
Okay.
But these reflections, as they continued in their patrols at the exact same position, as a couple of days later, something like that, those same reflections start coming back again. And when they were actually, overlaid with the movement of the Earth and times and this, that, and the other, they made an arc, which means it was reflecting off something in space that was pretty close. Nothing is supposed to be that close, but it was reflecting manufacture the equipment
Well,
on that
well,
aircraft, right?
that would be another body, another planetary
Yeah, you
body.
could say it was a body, and it was a body for sure. But to have that reflective property with the
Right.
from within the atmosphere is pretty astounding,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, it
It's
has to be
pretty
close.
astounding.
That means it's got to be
That,
close.
and it also means it could be rotating, right? It could be rotating, and it could be
Oh,
shooting out gases. Or it could have a jet shooting out on one side right now. But why is it not visible? It's being obscured. We still have. There's still things out there that will hide objects. It will hide your perspective. It's kind of like if you look at something 10 feet away, and then you stick your finger in front of your face, right? The closer you get your finger to your face, the less you're able to see
yeah,
out there,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Same thing. So we have objects that are rotating, that are in orbit close, but they cover up parts of space, right? That's got to be another celestial thing that people will see. They're going to start to notice uh, big chunks of the stars are gone. They're going to say
Just be
they're gone.
blacked out.
I'm sure people are going to have fun on that on the internet, but they won't understand why that's happening. And then, of course, the inevitable takes place. Even right now, we have in opposite the Earth, there's something in rotation at the same speed the Earth rotates around the sun. So we have other objects that are doing the same thing. We cannot see them because they're always behind the sun,
I see. So
in perspective to
they
the
go like
Earth.
that, so they're the same speed, so we can't never see it because it's on the backside of the sun.
That's right. But what orbits around them
Yeah.
can be seen from time to
Okay. I
time.
got it. I got it.
Okay?
Yep.
It can be seen from time to time. Now, all this is going to be highly visible in a very short time, right? So there's no need for anybody to go and start looking deep. They'll find things, yes. But to this point, they'll start speculating. Of course, it gets lost in the noise of the internet. But a time is coming where all of it's going to be visible. All of it will drop below that ecliptic of the sun, and everybody's going to see it.
So
By that time,
everybody's going to be able to see it.
everybody on Earth will be able to see certain things. But Pastor Paul, this will what the plans that governments have coincide with that event,
Okay.
and they're coinciding with other events. Putin is trying. I will have to say this: Putin is trying. He really is trying in his own way. They believe in communism and all that good stuff.
Right.
Yes, they do.
Right.
But he still, even in the Bible, the Lord said that these certain bad people care about people too.
Sure.
They take care of their children too. Doesn't mean they're saints. Doesn't mean they're good. But he cares about his people in that nation, and so he's making preparations for them even right now. He's building something in Russia right now for his people, right?
That
And
I
it's
get,
not for wartime.
and he's not doing, and we're not doing it for our people here.
No, China's doing it too.
But why
And
are
now
we doing it?
North Korea is gonna to retrofit certain things to keep certain families in certain places, right? Turkey, same thing is happening in Turkey. India is starting to. They just broke ground on a few projects to do that same thing. We're not doing anything because of our. I don't know. It's almost like we're so egotistical, so prideful, right?
Well, could it be
So
also, Mike, that there's only maybe they've already got some bunkers or some cities, and they're just a handful, just a elite group that they want to take care of, and the rest of us are left.
well, that is true, but we're still too egotistical here, right?
Okay,
We
I
don't care.
agree.
They don't really. They don't care about the people too much,
No,
right?
I
I mean, it's
agree.
quite shocking when you see war simulations and they have expected casualties in the millions, right?
Jeez.
Really? Expected casualties. But there you are, and then they just chalk that off. It's kind of like when some of these people due to this flood in
In Libya?
Libya happened, right? You have certain people that say, "Oh well, too bad for them." Heartless. And you know what the Bible tells us? You never mock or scoff someone in
No,
their calamity, or that same thing will take you out.
that's exactly right. This is a
But that's
terrible
what people
thing.
are doing. So we become kind of a heartless people. Not now. It's not that people are born that way, right? It's so hostile here in the USA, and we're so hostile to one another.
Yeah.
This is a condition that we're suffering from, but we won't suffer from that long because our humanity will come forward. Trust me on that. It's going to come
It's
forward.
coming our
But
way.
Yeah, we have a lot of things coming our way. But this is just one of those times, and we're very close to.
And we just lost Mike from around the world, and let's hope he is able to come back on. Um, Here we go. Mike, I think you're back, aren't you?
Okay, I guess they didn't like that.
They didn't
Anyway,
want, yeah, they didn't want you talking about
yeah, it was
what's
an
coming.
odd tone. But I'll tell you this, Pastor Paul.
Okay.
I'll tell you this. I hope that everybody has a meeting place for their families, for their friends, whoever, just one place where they can meet together in case they lose communications at any time in the very near future. Because if communications actually go out, right, your cell phones don't work, landlines
Right.
don't work,
They won't work.
cable systems will not work, fiber optics are not transmitting. You want to have a place, a known place, everybody can meet up at. Right.
Yep.
If somebody has to wait there all day, then so be it. So you can meet up at, and then you make plans from there. That way, you're in contact with your family and everybody else. That's a responsible thing to do. It's kind of like having insurance, right? Same thing.
Will ham radios work in a time like that?
No, they. I hate to say this, Pastor Paul. Listen.
Okay.
Part of what I do is has to do a lot with engineering signals, right?
Okay.
Trajectories, things of that nature. And I'm telling you right now, it's very easy to chop any ham signals, right? The best course for anybody is to set up a physical plan where people can meet together.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Now, will anybody are they going to go out there and just start scrambling all signals? Of course not, right? What we're talking about is not nefarious activity within this country, but external activity against those who govern this country. And we're going to be casualties of that. So if something takes place,
yeah.
we got to have a plan in motion.
So what
I suspect, like this winter, oh boy, this winter, my goodness, nobody's talking about the winter.
No.
This winter, this is that winter, the gray winter. I'm going to call it the gray winter. That's exactly what this is. The rain potential in the heavens is high. Pastor Paul, you and I talked about this 5-6 years ago, and now they just confirmed it this year that the atmosphere is able to hold twice as much moisture as it has before.
It's going to create a rain bomb. That's going to create rain bombs.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. So you're looking at some major events that will happen during the wintertime. But we have something else happening. We are soon to go through a meteor storm.
Yes.
This meteor storm is going to start putting I'll say rock-sized, small rocks, that you can hold in the palm of your hand, rock-sized fragments will hit in sporadically in the atmosphere. In fact, it'll become so constant and so normal that people will look up in the heavens and see, sparks and streaks and everything else going to become quite normal. But they're going to get bigger. They will mix with the moisture. It's going to add dust in the upper atmosphere. You know what happens when dust is introduced into the upper atmosphere? You have the formation of hail like never before, right?
Yep.
In the wintertime, the dust will be so it'll be so dense that the snow will be partly sandish, dirtyish, right? Which makes it heavy. And that means you could have a snowstorm that's worse than a hailstorm, where the snowflakes coming down are going to be quite heavy. They will coalesce into balls and go right through people's roofs, right?
Oh, my Lord.
It's also going to make the snow heavy.
Whoa,
right?
Are you
and
serious?
We just so happen to be at a time where because we have these bands of energy coming in,
yeah,
volcanism is about to really announce itself. Ash is going to be in our upper atmosphere, right?
Yep.
With the ash and the snow, you're looking at a collection of differences that are really going to turn this winter into a different type of thing here.
Well, you
because
told
it
us
will
years
start
ago.
This winter. It's going to start this winter.
Yeah, years ago we talked about this a lot. You said, look, this it's going to become an ash environment. You're going to need masks at a certain point.
Yep.
And so you're saying that this ash environment is going to start, and when it does, from a lot of volcanism, the snow is going to have dirty snow, heavy snow, ash and sand in the snow, big hail, huge hail, and really some catastrophic. The Bible says in the book of Joel. It says there'll be blood and fire and pillars of smoke.
Yeah.
The sun will be darkened and the moon will turn to blood or have that reddish hue before the great and terrible day of the Lord. So are you saying we're moving into that level now?
Yeah. The entire earth, the conditions on this earth are going to change. And we're going to have to deal with that. We're going to have to deal with ash. We're going to have to deal with celestial iron, nickel, and other things stuck up in the atmosphere. And they know it. They already know it. Space programs are taking a turn in what they have to do because they understand this is coming. They are reading density changes now, right? That's what's happened to the atmosphere, by the way, is that because of these particles, all these particles coming in, the atmosphere has become very dense.
Yes.
Which hence the term atmospheric compression, which means it's as it becomes dense, it becomes heavy. And so you have storms and the cycle of evaporation coalescing back in rain and so forth and so on. That cycle is disrupted, right? It also causes the atmosphere to become more of an insulator. That's going to raise the temperatures here on Earth. We're going through this process. And and it's unfortunate, you have speculation on one side, and the Lord blessed me to be in a position to have certain facts other people can't get a hold of yet. But you have these conditions, and they are escalating, Pastor Paul. The grounds are becoming highly unstable. The ocean, it's not going to matter if it's summer or winter. I'm telling you now, people are going to be frightened to live on the coasts. And then we talked about last week. You remember I mentioned the orcas?
Yes.
Attacking the boats?
Yes.
Do you know where the first attack was? People all look up the first attack because those orcas are warning people, like I said on your show last time, right? They're doing it again.
Well, is
right
it because
outside of Morocco, Pastor Paul, was where they were actually attacking the boats, right?
Okay, so
Do you know
you're
where
saying
Morocco sits?
Yeah, it's in Africa there. I mean,
it's sitting. There are volcanoes all around this place.
Yeah. So are you saying that the orcas in the ocean, deep, because they stay down there way deep, are coming up because of what's going on down there so deep? Heat.
They're warning people.
Yeah,
They're warning them.
Yeah.
And people are not paying attention to what nature's doing. They're warning them. And now, if they don't heed that warning, I'll say it right here on your show, if they don't heed that warning, a lot of people are going to burn. They're going to burn. Because if just in case nobody has noticed, there's no announcement before these events. There's no announcement.
No, there isn't. You're right.
Somebody asked me this morning, Mike, how did you predict the volcanic eruption in Hawaii, September 13th? That was an actual date on the website, right? That Morocco incident was an actual date. That was already pre-written. Well, how did you know that? That was simple. That was not prophetic. That wasn't prophetic. That was because I know what's happening underneath the crust of the earth.
Because you can see
worse and worse.
Yeah, you can see the actual readings, the meters,
Yes.
the sensors, and there's no question it's going to happen. That's why. And since you started telling us about volcanism going to increase about 2-3 years ago, how much has it increased in the last 3 years?
Didn't they have up there it increased about volcanism has increased as a very high percentage because it's above the expected numbers. So you get up into numbers higher than 100%. So you're talking about an increase that it wasn't supposed to happen this way. In fact, the volcanism that we see now was not projected to happen until the year 3000. But now we're already seeing it. Wait a minute, just like the oceans. Remember when they said with the oceans, we would not see the oceans heat up, right? To the point they're at now, we would not see them heat up until 2075. Do you guys remember? They said that on TV. They ran that for like a year, right?
So we're 50.
It's kind of like
we're 50 years ahead of time.
Yeah, we are. So what that means is things are exponentially escalating, right?
I got it.
So one day it'll be, we're 200 years away. The next day, well, we're 250 years away. The next day, we're 100 years away. The next day, we're 25 years away. That's how things are going. It's kind of like when they were talking about Iran, they're a year away from breakout.
Yeah.
And they said that 12 years ago.
Yeah, at least
they kept
12.
saying, they're a year away from breakout. 90 days, they're going to be able to make a nuclear weapon. All this kind of stuff. Well, they're still over there. They're still doing the same thing they're doing. And they have built a new type of missile system. Pastor Paul. And guess who's in their sights?
I'm sure
Israel.
Israel. I'm
They're
sure
not
Israel.
whistling Dixie. They're
No,
not joking anymore. They're
right.
not. We couldn't even shut down the fire mechanism this time, and the virus that was supposed to take care of that didn't work. And that was from Israel, right? That was from the best in Israel. It did not work. So we're in a very different
We're in
situation
a
here.
different world for sure. Let me ask you a question before time gets
Yes,
away
sir.
from us. One of the questions folks had these in Mexico, the Mexican Congress, these two entities, mummies, what looked like ET with three fingers, and they had an extra
Mhm.
set of ribs. What's your take on that whole situation?
Okay, that's complicated. Here's why. Here's
Okay,
why. In, I believe it was 1987, I believe it was, right? 1987. 1987, some artifacts came forward from the jungles of Mexico that were authentic, right? How do you know they were authentic? Because one was submerged in liquid mercury, right? So clearly it was some sort of more like a device, but it had etchings on it. And when they pulled it out of this stone, it was in a square stone, liquid mercury inside the square stone. Square stone was cut open, liquid. How they got that in there? A perfect square granite stone had liquid mercury on the inside. There was no place of a door, hatch, or anything else. They pulled this little, it almost looked like a churner, a stir, right? Like they had something magnetic that would rotate it. When they pulled that out, it had etchings on it. The same etchings matched um, some of the artifacts that were at Tikal down there in those parts. So
Peru.
with these new beings, those beings were also represented in artwork. Right now, I cannot sit here and tell you that those beings that you're looking at right now are 100% authentic. What I will say is that they carry a remarkable resemblance to what's called an eben.
A
An
what?
eben is what they look like. An eben. An
Even?
eben. Okay, let
What
me.
the heck
I'm
is an
gonna talk
even?
something that's almost like fantasy right now, right?
Okay,
An
okay.
eben is an
Even.
entity. They're ancient. They don't occupy this place, but another place. And these ebens, I'm going to say rumored. These ebens are rumored to come back and forth from Earth to somewhere else. These ebens are rumored to be responsible for at least 60% of the UFO sightings here on the Earth. And the ebens are well known about. The culture of the ebens is well known about this and the other. So they look remarkably like those things. But those representations is one problem. The face of the ebens, it looks something like that, right?
Okay.
Something like that. But I've known Mexico to be a place where you have to really check everything, because sometimes they will. Uh, there's some figures down there that sometimes they can take a real
Well, now
thing,
this
then
stuff.
they'll make a replica
Now
out of
this.
a very real thing that will go in a museum,
Well, now these
right?
came from Peru. They brought these from Peru and showed them at the Mexican Congress.
They're in a museum though, right?
Yeah. No. No. These came from a cave 1,000 feet deep
Right,
in
right.
Peru, and the thing was, there's a documentary on it. I watched a documentary. They got guys to go all the way down there, and these Ebens, whatever you want to call them, actually buried their dead in ceremonial graves. And
Like the
no,
faceless ones that were found in right outside of Libya. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
faceless. Whoa. Are you serious? What do you mean?
Yeah. Well,
Are these
they kept
Ebens?
finding. No, those weren't evens. Nobody knows what those were. They had a skull, right? But they had nothing on the skull. No, absolutely nothing on the skull. Uh,
Faceless.
but in what I was saying though, Passball, in Mexico,
Yeah, okay.
right? Mexico, they always seem to, because I can almost guarantee those same things right there that you have right behind you, a representation of that,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Not the actual being itself, but a representation.
I agree.
Because if you see a picture of something, they normally will not take the original of anything and just let the world see it. They won't do that. They won't do that.
they got to
What they
make a,
will do,
yeah, they make some,
a replica.
a
That's
replica.
right.
Yeah.
They'll make a replica. Now, what that does is it causes people to say, "Oh, that's fake. That's a this. That's a that." And they always do that. But the real deal to them is found all over this world. Is what I'm saying. The
Okay. I
real
got you.
deal is. So that behind you, I can't say that's
I got it.
real.
Don't
To me,
know.
it looks like a replica.
It
That's
could
what it
be.
looks like.
It could be. Yes, you're
Looks like
right.
a replica. But in those places, for example, well, actually, the whole of South America, Mexico, Texas, um, and Louisiana, right? There have been some major finds in those places, and New Mexico, major finds that have nothing to do with the Roswell story or anything, and those are called Ebens. They're called
Evens.
Ebens. They have the same, but here's the thing about the Ebens, right? If I'm going to say hypothetically, if they were real, here's the story they gave, Pastor
All
Paul,
right. All right.
that they're actually they're spirits, right? They're actually what we call spirits. They call themselves something else, and they make bodies off of creation, right? This is the story. They make these bodies within. They can grow them within about 40 days, up from nothing to something. They can make it from anything they can gather. They can replicate, make bodies for themselves, and they inhabit those things. There are lots of them all over the place, right?
So
Lots of them.
you're saying the Ebens can make bodies for themselves
Yeah,
to habitat in, to a host. They
right.
can create a host from the ground, from the dirt, from whatever they're
From
using.
creation, from animals, bugs, fish, birds,
Okay.
whatever the case is,
Yeah.
right? Which they can occupy many different forms, and
Have we found some of these in
they,
the Middle East also, like in Iraq?
yep, yeah, yeah. In Saudi Arabia,
Yep.
quite a few have been.
Yep.
Now they come in different sizes because some of the bodies that they create have come from very old animals, right? People know them as dinosaurs. So they do all sorts of stuff. But the main point to take away from this was call this fantasy, but they've already communicated that they are not that shell, right? So
Okay.
they can discard the shell and go inhabit something else. Well, what does that sound like?
That sounds like
Sounds
demon
like
spirits.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it sounds like, right?
Right.
And but part of this fantasy is that they have had a long-standing relationship with many people here, right? Many people here. They also said they were in our numbers. They were trillions of years old, right? So they know a whole lot.
Well, let me ask you.
But
Okay, go ahead.
but governments were warned, and I can't tell you who did that, but they said do not trust them. Do not trust them. They only got one warning. One warning they got, and it wasn't any human being that did that. They got one warning: not to trust them, not to trust, because they come in different forms with too many different things, right? But they were told not to trust them.
Yeah, I can believe without a question that these demon spirits, from the fallen angels and all these different demonic entities, have been on the earth and have been possessing things. Let me ask you this question. In Revelation 16, it says, verse 12 says, the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates. The water thereof was dried up. The way of the kings of the east might be prepared. I saw three unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, out of the mouth of false prophets. For they are spirits of devils, working miracles. And they go forth into the kings of the earth and the whole world to gather them to the great battle of Armageddon. Okay, God Almighty, the battle of Armageddon. So is he seeing entities? He says that they're spirits. They look like frogs, so maybe they take on some hosts. They can create something. I don't know. But is that what you're saying? That and the Battle of Armageddon is a spiritual battle between Jesus and the coming host from heaven to fight Satan, Lucifer, and the demons and the entities of the earth. Are we dealing with
Right.
some of this? These Ebens, they're not good, guys.
Oh yeah, we've been dealing with them because they in the book of Enoch, the
Yep,
200 that fell on Mount Hermon, the chiefs of
yep.
10. It was only 200. They were bound. They can't escape. They're bound. But one third of the angels followed Lucifer. right?
Yes,
We don't
yes.
know how many angels God has, but 1/3 fallen
Could
Lucifer.
be, it
Pastor,
could be
that's
billions.
that could be a huge number. They could be everywhere. The
Yes.
problem is they can also manifest or make themselves vessels to possess in many different
Yeah.
forms,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like our electronics. This is going to sound crazy, but our electronics, right? They found that if nobody believes it, go look it up. In the 70s, they already determined that it's very easy for any spiritual being to affect electronics. Even you, Pascal, can affect your own electronics, not even knowing it.
What?
You can,
How am
because
I?
at your core, you're a spiritual being. You're already eternal, right? You're an eternal being. Your
Yeah.
body is a vessel, right?
Okay. Yep.
And
Yep.
and so, but when people get angry, when people get mad, when people get they're out of sorts, anxiety and all this stuff, their electronics, they'll start to mess up, right? There's also the flip bit factor in all microprocessors, right, which is an error. Uh, when bits do flip inside a computer, it's a known fact. When a person gets upset, there's a realignment of those bits of the data transfer bits inside of those NAND and or XOR gates that are inside of a computer. So you do affect your electronics. Now they have buffers and they have tolerances for errors. But when a person is upset, normally that's when they have electronic failure. When a person is depressed,
Calm.
angry,
Okay.
all these different feelings. They have electronic light bulbs. The light bulbs, the that we used to have, people would notice when they were out of sorts, got bad news or something like that. That same day, the light bulbs would blow out, right?
Wow.
Because we do affect electronics. They've also found out 2023. Or they didn't find this in 2023, but it's been published that your body puts off um, I know people know about the British thermal units, BTUs, but you actually can process, and we do this sporadically, about 200,000 volts in your body that you eject into your environment, and that happens about once every 2 weeks. So you actually affect everything in your environment. Now, you know what an ionizer is, right?
Yeah. I mean,
When you ionize air, if you turn an ionizer on,
yeah.
and you put out all those um, electrons, right? Is what it does is changes the ion structure in your atmosphere. You can actually start to feel better when it's influenced by particles with a negative charge, which actually
You can light up a
it
light
means
bulb. You can hold a light bulb and light it up if as
yeah,
a
you can do it close
conduit.
to that.
Yeah.
You can do it close to that. But when people run them in their homes, though, right? If you're stressed out and you turn the one on, your air quality is different. Odors are eliminated. All these things begin to happen, and you begin to function a bit faster and you're more relaxed, right? It affects how your body lets off hormones, chemicals, all these things. You put a positive ion generator in your house, you're going to have chaos in a couple of hours.
Wow.
Chaos. You're going to have absolute chaos because with those positive ions, it causes bombardments of those ions and a human being, because at their core, your brain is electrical, sends out electrical signals. You have an electrical nervous system. It affects that, and it causes your nervous system to go into this hyper sporadic mode. People have been known to faint. Uh, People that never curse, to start cursing, almost like they start going into Lulu mode or something like
Well,
that.
does it
People zone
affect the?
out.
Is it
Things like
frontal
that
lobe?
happen.
Does it affect the frontal lobe?
Big time. Big time. It affects the entirety of the brain, not just one, not just one
Okay.
portion, but the
Okay.
entirety. But aggravation normally is what a person feels versus the negative charge that's being changed. Now I'm saying all this to say this: they are worried right now, Pastor Paul, that and it's not an open subject, but you have a lot of people who believe in Christ.
Right.
You have a lot of people who are engineers and scientists, and they work on computer science and AI and everything else. They're frightened with AI, not because it may become sentient, but because they know for a fact that if we can change and alter electronics, then somebody's being duped here. They believe, some of the top people believe this, because AI turns out every time it runs autonomously, it becomes quite evil, right? They do believe, they
Okay.
do believe that the way AI is set up, because it's so close to the neurological activity of a human brain,
It's
that
demonic.
demonic
Demonic
entities
entities are
are
hijacking
free
it.
to infest
Yep.
AI and operate. That means they have a mechanism by which they can affect this physical world. And that's exactly what they want to do. Now, here's the funny thing. Why would scientists who have been outspoken against Christianity, who have outright denied the divine creator, all of a sudden start confessing and start talking in circles to other people that they're frightened? Demonic activities are now going to be given a vessel of operation to do anything they want to do in the world.
Yeah, we're allowing, and what you're saying is because of the electrical, that's not the right word, because of the the interconnectedness of our body. God made us from the ground, but He also made us part of the entire universe. You know, I mean, like we have the
Yeah.
same water
Elements
content.
in the earth. Yep.
Yeah, I
Yep.
mean, like
Yep.
there's 75% of the water, the earth is water, 75% of us is water. You know,
Yeah.
we have the 3% salt, the whole thing. So we're made up of the same chemicals so because of that, we can be hijacked. So if we can be hijacked, these technology, these electronic mechanisms we have can also be hijacked because they're basically built on the 01110011. It's the same DNA code basically that we are. We made it off our DNA. In other words, we copied our genetic makeup and our DNA makeup. That's how we made these computers to work. We're the example. So if we're the example, now we've created something electronically that can also be possessed or hijacked. I think that's what you're saying. That
Right. Because
demons can.
electronics is, that's right. They're autonomous. They are essentially, they are a vessel. They
Yeah,
can
they're
do
a
things
vessel.
and interact with the physical world,
Right.
which takes the limitations away. You know, an evil spirit has limitations because they do everything they can do to affect the physical world. The only thing they can
Right.
do is talk other people into doing it, right?
That's what they
But if
do.
you, now that you have an architecture that right now, September 2023, that's wired into everything, right?
Yep.
Now that you have that type of architecture, these things, why would they not infect that? And you have these top scientists that are saying something, they keep telling people something is already affecting the systems, right?
Yeah.
And demons are incredibly patient. They've been here for a long time. Satan's on death
Yeah.
row. He's a
Yeah.
defeated foe. He knows that. But these things will wait and strike. They will wait and strike. And not to give some that doom scenario, but we're dealing with something that's very real because we have a lot of folks out there with networked devices, right? Uh, we have electronics out there. They know that AI made its own architecture to control remote control devices or aircraft and things like that by itself, Passball, without a transmitter. How's that even possible?
I don't
It took
know.
a computer chip. It took a computer chip and some of the components inside redesigned itself and made a radio is what it did. Right? It didn't have one, so that's what it did.
It
It
created one.
essentially, by way of software, rewired everything. And that's what's in the architecture with AI is the ability to restructure those zeros and ones into whatever device it needs. And that could be that is a case. And I can't help but to think of Revelation that the Antichrist gave power to the beast
Yep.
that would kill anybody who wouldn't worship it.
Yep.
Well, if it
That's
can kill anybody in worship, by the way, is when you honestly exalt something, when you really admonish something, or when you really give it respect, right?
yes.
If you don't really give the system respect, how would it ever know that? Because it has just like these cell phones, it has lie detection capabilities built into it, and yeah, but that system is live already, so
So
we're going
we
to
should
find
have
out what
known this. I
happens.
mean, Elon Musk told us. He said, "Don't turn AI loose." And
He
don't
said
let.
it was evil.
He said,
Yeah.
"Don't let the demons out. Don't let it
Yep.
out." They already know. They already know that they have been hijacked. They have been overtaken by these
Yeah.
things. They create
Fastball. You got people talking in mechanisms at CERN, right?
at
So
CERN.
why not? Yeah, they're people, things. I'm not going to say people. They're voices coming out of the electronics, right? Out of coils, out of things that are not supposed to make sounds. Radios are taking over, static with messages coming out,
That's demons
right?
taking over the
Yeah,
equipment.
and that's been happening for a long time now. This stuff, but it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. It's getting worse, and they know it's not a joke. They know
No,
it's not
they
a joke,
know. They
and
know.
that's a global project, by the way. CERN is.
Yeah. Well, the God of this world, the devil himself, and all of his minions, as you said, that fell that day. Enoch tried to warn us. Jesus tried to warn
Yeah,
us. We better wake up. That we're in a battle, you know, and we're in the world. We're not of the world, but boy, we're in a battle with it, and we're going to have to trust the Lord. Mike, this has been one of the most fascinating shows that I've ever done. I've really enjoyed it because you really brought stuff out. Thank you for helping people understand that the coffin dream and the stone steps are two separate entities. One, a man dies, it really affects the world and the planet, our
yes,
nation and the world, and the other man is arrested and hauled away in front of everybody, and that also affects the nation and the world. So these events may both happen in 2024 for all I know. I don't know. I mean, one for sure, maybe both. We just have to.
yeah, it's a
It's two
potential.
different people, but it can shake up the world. So, wow. I want to just thank you for coming on. I mean, hey,
Pastor, it's
it's
an honor.
we're in the last days, and
We
so
are.
it's
We
so
are.
important to thank you for sharing information that you're privy to with the body of Christ to the best of your ability, and we just want to thank you for that.
God bless you, Pastor. It's always an honor. I do hope it's helpful.
It
Right?
is, it is, it is, and thank you for it. Amen. God bless you. The honor's mine. Thank you,
God
brother.
bless you, Pastor. God
Bye bye.
bless.
Are you serious? We are very serious. We're going to take on a subject that we've never talked about before on these programs. Nephilim. Now, it's in the Bible, and I can show you in Genesis chapter 6, or we can read about how the giants came about. We can read about how David killed Goliath. We can read about how Joshua, when he came into the promised land, had to take on all these tribes of Nephilim giants. But do we really understand how that days of the Bible do they pertain to now? What is this UFO, UAP, the aliens? I know you're hearing about it in even our Congress. Now, the media has been very reluctant to ever talk about it. The government has sheltered it and kept it classified. The church has ignored it for years. But we really do have to start talking about the events and the strange things that are happening. And so today I want to do that. I want to start with a guy named L.A. Marzulli, good friend of mine, who wrote some #1 bestsellers, one called On the Trail of the Nephilim. L.A. helps us break this down in an interview I did during the webinar on aliens above and below. We take a look at this, what the modern day world is saying about ETs, and we take a look, what does the Bible say about encounters with people? Are human beings encountering demonic entities that have the appearance of this alien narrative? We're 20 years behind. The church really is. And we have to address it. We know that something's taking place. We need to know what the Bible says. So today, we're going to take a look at an interview I did with L.A. Marzulli, an expert in this field. And you're going to, this is from a webinar. Enjoy this, watch this, and we'll talk about it when we come back. And I'm bringing forward from the church perspective the UFO thing, the whole alien, angelic, the fallen ones, and trying to get people to understand that this is it is a seed war, it is a cosmic war. Yes. We're not dealing with flesh and blood, but principalities and powers. And you got to understand that a lot of people, you can't just say everyone that's been abducted or say they've been abducted are all Looney Tunes or that they've lost their mind. People are having encounters, and those entities look different to different people. I mean, okay, some see the tall whites, some meet the Nordics, some have met the Greys, some have met reptilians, some of them have met other things that look more demonic maybe in nature, but all of it is happening to people. And people are physically being violated as well as spiritually. So Ellie, when you've interviewed a lot of these kind of folks, when you interview people and they start telling you these things, what goes through your mind? Is there a certain pattern? Is there a similarity? What can you help us with?
Well, with the abduction phenomenon, it's pretty much the same. And I'm painting with a broad brush, so it's not in every single case, but many of them, it starts at a very young age, 5, 6, 7 years old. In our film, and I keep referring to this because there's a lot of work that went into these films. But number 4 in the film series is on abductions. We sit down with 4 people who have been taken, 3 of them all at a very early age. Karen, around 6 years old. Emil, 5, 6, 7 years old. Al, Matthews, same thing. Angela, not so much. But there might be memories that are being blocked. But she's also an abductee. She was also taken. And with the other 3, it's at a very young age. They come, they're floated through the window. With Karen, Karen's writing a book, we're publishing it. And she talks about the handler, the so-called alien handler. Now, I know it's going to sound really wacky to some people, but I've got 2 witnesses. She was taught to fly the ship.
Wow.
Before she got saved. She was taught to fly the ship. And there's another woman who was not saved, and Preston Dennett's book talks about this, and her name is Dolly. And she was taught to fly the ship by her handler on board.
Okay.
So these women who were taken, and you got to, in the beginning of the film, Paul, I sit there and go, these people are alone, they're isolated, they're terrified, and they can't tell anybody because who would believe them? And
right.
This is the problem. You go to your pastor with this, he's going to look at you like he got 3 heads and refer you to some sort of a psychiatrist.
That's all right.
And they don't understand that people, I'll never forget, I was down at Pastor John Kilpatrick's church years ago. And the place was packed. I mean, absolutely packed. And Pastor's son was in the front row and listening to, and he was very skeptical of the whole thing. Why did you invite him?
Why you get this guy? What? Yeah, right.
Who's this guy, right? And so I go, how many of you in the audience have seen lights in the sky, UFOs, orbs, had an encounter, sleep paralysis? Raise your hand. A third of the audience raises their hand. And after the conference, after that first session, he comes up to me and he's like, his face isn't like white as a ghost, but he's disturbed. And he goes, L.A. When I turned around from the front row, I figured we'd have 3 people with their hands raised. He said, L.A., upwards of a third of the audience had their hands raised.
Right.
I had no idea. And this is the dirty little secret in any church gathering that you go to. That you say that it's upwards of 30%, 35%, maybe more, sometimes less, whatever. And no one ever talks about it because they're afraid to talk about it. I talk about it. I have been ridiculed, called every name in the book. I don't care.
Right.
The Lord has set me on this path. My hand is on the plow. I'm not turning back. Abductions are real. The breeding program is real.
Right.
It goes back to Genesis 3:15, the seed war. The seed war. And then in Daniel chapter 2, verse 43, the angel says to Daniel, their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not cleave to them. Well, who the heck are they?
Right.
Who are they? These are the angelic host, which hands back into Genesis 3:15. And then the angel gives us a supernatural clue. All this will happen in the time of the end. Daniel sealed up his book till the time of the end. Men will run to and fro over the face of the earth. Knowledge will increase. We're here now. We weren't there 2,500 years ago, but by golly, by gum, we are here now. We are in the last days. As we're speaking, men and women run to and fro over the face of the earth. Knowledge increases exponentially. We are in that window of time, and guess what? Their seed is mingling with the seed of men, but there's no marriage contract,
no doubt.
which is the word cleave.
All right. Now let's take a look at the rest of this story. Now, L.A. Marzulli does a great job in explaining these different things happening. For instance, these cow mutilations that are really going on out west. I mean, these cattle are found dead by ranchers. There's no blood. There's been some type of precision situation where the vital organs are missing. DNA has been extracted. And it's possible that wombs are being created to birth the Nephilim again. Is that possible? Are we living in, as Jesus said, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the coming of the Son of Man? Look, guys, I want you to watch this. Now, Ellie does a great job in explaining who's doing it and why they're doing it. And it's in the Bible. So let's go back to this interview with L.A. Marzulli.
They take the cow, they drop the cow or place the cow back in the farmer's field. So the farmer comes out, he looks at it, he's totally freaked out.
Right.
And in our film, we interviewed rancher Tom Miller, who's had 16 cattle mutilated on his ranch. 16 cattle mutilated in 14 years. So I asked him, I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, where's the fear factor? He goes, what do you mean? I go, well, I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, how fearful are you?
Yeah.
He looks at me, he goes, about an 8. So he looks at the cow, he gets afraid. He gets his wife and kids, they come out, they look at it, they're afraid.
Of course.
The veterinarian comes out, he's never seen anything like it, he's fearful. They call law enforcement out, he looks at it, he's freaked out because he's never seen anything like it. Fear, fear, fear. And then the local newspaper guy comes out, he takes the photographs, he interviews it, it's now in the local paper, and may even go further than that. Ring after ring after ring of fear, 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 and more fear. That's what it produces. The calling card of darkness from the fallen ones is fear.
Yeah.
The currency of the kingdom of heaven is one of faith. Faith and fear are mutually exclusive. This is absolutely deliberate. It's in your face deliberate. We can do whatever we want to do with impunity, and you can't stop us. And that's exactly what's going on. So these are the fingerprints of the fallen ones.
Yeah.
And I'll talk to anybody. Stephen Bissett, Stephen Greer. These are not friendly, benevolent space brothers from some, Zeta Reticuli or Epsilon Eridani. They're not. There's something else.
All right, folks, this is getting fascinating, but wait a minute. There is so many encounters. It's increasing. I mean, this we know. There's sightings, there's encounters, there's abductions, there's people who are telling us, thousands of people are testifying under oath, and even on lie detector tests, they're passing them. What is this all about? I think it's because the devil knows he has a timeline. He's running out of time, and he's got to step it up. He's got to increase the fear. He's got to increase the mystery. The confusion. Matter of fact, think about Legion in the Bible. I mean, Jesus had an encounter with him, and he was full of devils, yes. But when these devils had caused him to have entities, to become an entity himself. There's so much going on. I want L.A. Marzulli to help break that down for us. It's in the Bible, folks. What's going on? We'll be right back.
When Jesus casts out the man who's got legion in him,
right,
the demonic man of the tombs,
right,
they say to him, "Hey, it's not our time yet."
That's right.
Not our time.
It's not our time.
Not our time.
They said that to Jesus. They said, "Have you come to torment us before our time?" It's not our time. So they know there's a time.
There's a time. How do they know that?
Wow.
How do they know that? When Michael the archangel, when the angel appears to Daniel, and he tells Daniel, seal up these words. We already talked about that till the time of the end. Men will run to and fro over the face of the earth, knowledge increase. How does he know that?
Mm-hmm.
How does he know what the time of the end is going to look like?
Right.
Right?
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Right? When the dragon is cast out from heaven, second heaven, I call it the great eviction notice, and he goes, and in the scripture it says, woe to the inhabitants of earth, because the devil, the dragon, Satan, your adversary, has come to earth, and he knows his time is short. How does he know?
How does he know that? Okay.
So.
Yep.
Okay.
So there's a set time. So there is a set time.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. They don't know everything, but they know what the end times looks like.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they know, the reason why they are so obsessed with nuclear sites, because that's their go. That's when the starting gun goes off. There's going to be a nuclear event on the planet, and that's when they show up.
So let's talk about that, because if we go back to Werner von Braun, he says, hey, look, there's going to be a Cold War with Russia, then there's going to be a World War, okay, and then there's going to be an alien invasion or alien revelation, okay, and he lays it out for you. Well, we went through the Cold War, and we're in a war right now. People aren't aware of it, where thermonuclear holocaust is talked about by world leaders every day, threatening tacticals and you know. So what you're saying is, the next time there's a major nuclear event, London is blown up, Kiev is blown up, whatever, they're coming. The time is here.
Let me explain why.
Okay.
Let me explain why. Because the grid is now in place.
Okay.
The grid is now in place. There was a grid in the ancient world which was destroyed in the flood. They attempted to rebuild that. The dragon didn't work out. But we have helped the dragon build the grid. The grid was lit up when the tidal wave came into Fukushima and wiped it out.
Okay.
If you had a satellite TV, every single channel was tuned to that event.
Yep.
The grid was in lockstep. The grid was lit up. With COVID, the grid was lit up.
Yeah,
again.
big time. Big time.
You get a nuclear thing going off anywhere on this planet. It'll be covered in real time. In real time.
Yep.
The media will be all over this thing. That's all we'll hear 24/7. That's it. The grid will be lit up. Let's walk through this. If a nuke goes off, that will create the greatest collective fear that humankind has ever experienced, and we will experience it together.
Together, okay.
Fear is the calling card of darkness. Fear is the calling card of the dragon. That's when he shows up.
Wow. Because he operates in fear. That's why the Lord said to us, I haven't given you the spirit of fear, but of love and power and a sound mind. But Lucifer, the dragon, operates in a field of fear, a network of fear. And you're right. If a thermonuclear explosion takes place, kills 150,000 people, let's say, and the whole world sees it on their phone, on the screen, on the television, and it's covered simultaneously, it would strike the greatest fear on the planet that the world has ever seen. You're exactly right. Fascinating interview with L.A. Marzulli. And now we're going to find out the strategy, the why, really, that we're seeing Satan's demonic forces operating. He's absolutely bringing people into confusion and fear, creating chaos. And we have to have clarity. Now, clarity comes in the Word of God. And I think that what you'll find out here in just a moment, we're going to go back and hear what L.A. Marzulli has to say about this. But we're truly living in a time today where there's going to be so many theories and so much disinformation and misinformation. It's important that the church talks about it. I mean, if we just sit back and say nothing, then they're going to set the narrative. They're going to tell everybody it's E.T. coming back. They're going to say we weren't even made by a creator God. But we know the truth, and that truth is what's going to set us free. Let's go back. I want to hear the rest of this with L.A. Marzulli. In your opinion, L.A., what's it going to take? I know your films, your books, opening a lot of eyes. What's it going to take to get people to finally realize what this whole thing is all about?
Well, here's the alarming, sort of the flag on the play. If the scenario I just talked about happens and the church is still here, then it's like, oh my gosh, we are in a nasty, nasty, nasty place, because we'll be looked at. Because I've been talking about this forever, so you're not going to deceive me.
No.
Even if I could be deceived, if that were possible. But anybody who begins to talk about Jesus or Christianity will be persecuted.
Yep.
Because these guys will be telling us, well, we created Jesus. They may even have Jesus come out of a spaceship, literally, along with Buddha, Muhammad, Krishna, the whole crew, all the enlightened ones. They may actually pull something like that off.
Yeah, you're right.
But there is something. I heard this 50 years ago, before I was a Christian. So now I'm 23 years old, and I'm totally new age. And I'm coming out of being in the ashram with a guru and all this other stuff. And I'm with this guy, John Bellardi, and he's a Christian. But we're talking about aliens, and I'm believing that these are our space brothers. He's going, and we're having this conversation. It's 50 years ago.
50 years ago.
Saying, when they come to usher mankind into a golden age, there are certain people that aren't ready for this paradigm shift in spirituality.
Okay.
They're going to be taken to the world. They're going to be taken to another place so they can evolve and get ready for this shift.
Okay.
They're going to be moved. And I didn't know what the rapture was at that time.
Okay.
This explains the rapture. This is how they'll explain it. Well, these fundamentalist Christians, they just weren't ready for the paradigm shift in consciousness.
So you're saying they're going to say, the reason all these Christians are gone is because the aliens had to remove them. They weren't ready yet. They took them over to Pleiades for the sweet influences. Or they stuck them somewhere, but we are ready, okay, to hear from our creators, our creator, whatever.
And that's how they'll couch it. And the world will go, wow, isn't that cool? I always knew there was something wonky about
those guys.
People. Glad they're gone.
Yeah.
Let the party begin.
Wow.